The Arizona desert lay quiet and endless, until an HOA officer came striding toward my wife and kids, pointing like he owned every grain of sand beneath his boots. He didn't expect to see me step out of the barn with a lever-action rifle resting on my shoulder, and he definitely didn't expect what followed. Out here, you don't threaten a rancher's family and walk away smiling. Evening settled slow over the ranch, the horizon glowing gold as the sun sank low. I tightened the last bolt on the corral gate while my kids laughed near the old windmill. My wife, Sarah, sorted feed sacks beside the porch, her outline soft against the fading light. Peace hung in the air, brief and fragile. A white SUV ripped across the dirt road, kicking up a storm of dust. Big block letters stamped along the side read HOA, like they fancied themselves frontier lawmen. Two men climbed out wearing wide hats and stiff khaki shirts, hands resting on their belts as they rehearsed that stance in front of a mirror. The taller one strode straight toward Sarah. "You're in violation," he barked, jabbing a finger at the tree swing hanging near my kids. "Unauthorized exterior structure. You were warned." Sarah stiffened but kept her tone calm. "This is private ranch property. We're not part of your subdivision." He gave a thin smile. "Ranch or not, we oversee this valley now. Expansion orders. You'll comply." His hand hovered near his holster, not drawing, just reminding. My kids edged backward, fear written across their faces. That's when the blood started roaring in my ears. I stepped out from behind the barn, slow and steady, rifle angled down but clearly visible. Not aimed, just present. The officer froze. "Sir, put that down. Don't speak to my wife that way," I said quietly. "And don't point at my children. You're interfering with an HOA investigation," he snapped. I moved one step closer. "You're not on your property. You crossed my fence without permission. That makes you the trespasser." The second officer shifted uneasily, glancing at the SUV, then at the empty desert road stretching behind them. Sarah hurried over to me. They said they'd tear the swing down themselves. My jaw tightened. I racked the rifle once, a sharp metallic snap echoing across the open land. The tall officer flinched. "You're threatening an authority figure." "You're not authority." I cut in. "You're a neighbor with a badge printed in your garage." Wind pushed dust around his boots. The silence pressed harder than the heat. The second officer whispered, "Maybe we should call this in?" This section wasn't listed, but the tall one shook his head. "No, we finished what we started." Then his eyes drifted back to Sarah. I stepped forward again. "Look at her one more time, and you won't be finishing anything." The wind hissed through the creosote bushes. My kids held their breath. At last, the tall officer backed up, boots crunching in the gravel. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Oh, it's just getting started," I replied. He climbed into the SUV but paused long enough to flash a clipboard through the window. Across the top in red letters, HOA property seizure warning. Sarah gasped. Something cold twisted in my chest. The SUV roared off in a cloud of dust. They thought threats would shake us. They thought paperwork would break us. They thought a rancher would fold. They were wrong. The next morning, the sky was still dark when the dog began barking, low, frantic warnings, the kind reserved for real danger crossing the line. I stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. Sarah stood behind me, holding our youngest close. The air carried the scent of dust and trouble. Headlights appeared first. 2, then 4, then 6. An entire convoy of HOA vehicles rolled onto my land like they were preparing for battle. 6 men stepped out wearing identical khaki shirts, identical fake badges, identical cheap holsters. And leading them was the tall officer from yesterday, walking front and center like he'd been rehearsing this moment his whole life. "You were warned," he shouted. "We're here to enforce the seizure order." I planted my boots firmly in the sand. "You're trespassing again. This ranch isn't under your control." He lifted a thick stack of papers. "According to this, it is." I didn't budge. Paper doesn't override land rights. And it sure doesn't override the Constitution. He smirked. We offered cooperation. "Step aside." Behind him, 2 men started towards Sarah and the kids. That was their biggest mistake. I raised a rifle and fired one round into the dirt between us. The crack split the valley like thunder. Dust burst to their boots. Every man froze. "He's firing!" the tall officer shouted. "Last warning." I said evenly, "No one touches my family." Their fake badges and rehearsed confidence seemed to shrink under real consequence. One whispered, "We're not trained for this." But pride burned hotter than sense in the tall one. He marched forward, pulling out a small black device, some kind of compliance scanner. He shoved it inches from my face. "Stand down. Now." I didn't blink. One more step, and that scanner's in the dirt. Sarah called out, "Please just leave us alone." The officer turned toward her. "Ma'am, your husband is obstructing." He didn't finish. I swung the rifle stock fast and knocked the scanner clean from his hand. It flew across the sand. He stumbled back, pale under his hat. His men stepped away from him, unsure whether to defend him or flee. "You assaulted an HOA official," he stammered. I moved closer, towering over him. "You stepped onto my land. You threatened my wife. You approached my children." The wind slid between us like a warning of its own. "Leave," I said. "Now, before this gets worse." Silence. Not even the dog barked. The tall officer looked around and realized the truth. No backup, no jurisdiction, no respect left to stand on. Let's go," he muttered. They scrambled into their vehicles. Engines roared. Dust rose in thick clouds that drifted like ghosts across the valley. Within seconds, they were gone. Sarah ran to me and wrapped her arms tight around my waist. The kids clung to my legs. "It's over," I whispered, though I wasn't certain. As the dust settled, something caught my eye near where the scanner had landed. A stamped document lay face up in the dirt. Across the top it read, "Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe." And underneath, in bold letters, "Turn on notifications so you never miss another HOA drama episode."